I'm Commander Jay Furman. This is the kickoff of the podcast, Commander's Coffee, and we're here with Stephen Williford, and we're going to talk about the importance of the Second Amendment as it applies to our country, Second Amendment as it applies to District 28 or South Texas, and we're going to talk about Stephen's amazing story about how it came into play in his life and the life of his fellow townfolk. So on one harrowing day. So y'all follow along with us. Click, like, share, whatever you're supposed to do with these things. I'm learning, but this is a way to engage South Texas constituents in my district, because I really want this to be a two-way conversation. And so we're going to push some content, amazing content, like talking to the Barefoot Defender here, and we're going to and then open it up for questions. And we want you to chat in with your questions and about anything about Congressional District 28. But today's topic is about the Second Amendment and what it means to every one of us when we may not be aware. And we'll learn specifically what that meant to Stephen Williford and his community when they weren't expecting it either. So with that, Stephen, would you tell us a little bit what happened on November 5th, 2017?
So November 5th, 2017, I was home. Normally I would be at a church about 40 miles from my home, but I was going to start an on-call at the hospital that I worked for as a maintenance plumber. Meaning I was going to have to carry a pager. Most millennials don't even know what a pager is nowadays. But it's this confounded little thing that will go off and you have to report to work. And I knew I was going to get anywhere from 20 to 30 extra hours for the week. And so I stayed home to get some rest, to get ready for on-call. And that morning I was relaxing and didn't have shoes on. And my daughter came running in and said, "Dad, doesn't that sound like gunfire?" I've been a pistol competitor, mainly, some rifle competitor, and instructor most of my adult life. And I know very much what gunfire sounds like. And your mind tries to make something innocent out of something that is very bad. So the moment she came in and said, "Dad, doesn't that sound like gunfire?" I thought it sounded like someone tapping at my window. And ran over and opened a curtain, realized that nothing was out there. And she said, "Come in the other room." And when I walked in the other room, I realized it was gunfire. I ran to my safe, opened it up, and I grabbed an AR-15 that I had hand-built myself, and I used to use for competition. When that safe door swung open, if you've got a choice of a rifle or a pistol and you know you're going to be going into a gunfight, always take the rifle. And so I grabbed a rifle, and I grabbed a magazine and popped open a box of ammo and started shoving rounds in it. I called my wife and said, "Where are you at?" She said, "I'm at Rachel's house," which is my younger daughter. My younger daughter, we were building a house for her ourselves at the time because she was pregnant, married and pregnant, and we were trying to get her and her husband into the house before the baby came. And so my wife was taping and floating walls. She's an amazing person. She does whatever she wants to do. And so I called her and said, "Where are you at?" She said, "I'm at Rachel's house." And she said, "What's happening?" Because she could hear the panic in my voice. I said, "Stay there." She said, "What's happening?" I said, "Somebody's shooting up the Baptist church." She said, "Don't go over there." I hung up on her and dropped the phone and started running for my door. My older daughter ran in, and when I said it was gunfire, she had run outside, jumped in her car, and sped up the block to find out what was going on. And when I was running for the door, she came bursting in the door again and said, "Dad, there's a guy in black tactical gear shooting up the church." I said, "Did you call 911? And she said, "I did. They're aware of it." So what that told me right away is police were coming, and they were coming fast. And they were coming to a mass shooting. And I'm running out the door with an AR-15 in my hands and no shoes on.
Right. What are you thinking at that moment?
At that moment, I feared the police department more than I did the shooter himself. Because what are they going to think? They're coming up, and here's this guy running across the street with no shoes on.
But it's Sunday morning, and there's gunfire coming out, and a report of a guy in tactical gear.
And Sutherland Springs is such a small little town. We are under 600 total population. And we're so far away from law enforcement, there's no telling. You know, there may have been an officer somewhere close, but probably not. And I knew that my community didn't have any time to wait. And so as I sprinted out the door, and if you see this much fat running, something serious going down.
Was this your church?
No, it wasn't the church I went to, but I did deliver toys with that church during Christmas time. I dress up as Santa. I'm their official Santa Claus. And I'm growing the beard right now to start.
So needless to say, you knew every parishioner in there.
I'm fourth generation in Sutherland Springs, and again, we're under 600 total population. I knew just about everybody in town. And so as I started running, my daughter chased me out the door, and I said, go in the house and load me a magazine. I said, I just have a handful of ammo. And I knew she couldn't load a magazine, come running across the street with a loaded magazine and say, Dad, here's a load. I knew that wasn't happening, but I gave her busy work, something that she would go back in the house and do. And he already had way too many targets I cared greatly about. And she didn't need to be a distraction. And if I had failed, she would have run to my side. He would have killed her next. And I didn't need that. So she ran back in the house. And as I ran across the street, I yelled out. And people say, why did you yell out? I can't tell you. That's against everything that I had trained. That gives away your element of surprise. And as I ran across the street, I yelled out, and I truly believe that God yelled out from me. I believe that God called the demon out that was in the church. Inside the church, everybody was hiding under the pews, and he shot Julie Workman through the breast. And that's important. That'll come in later in the story. And he bounced one off the concrete into her leg. She was hiding under the pew. He shot her through the pew. And then he turned the rifle, and he shot through the pew and hit Chris Workman in the back, instantly paralyzing Chris from waist down. And Chris said he was looking down the barrel of the guy's pistol when he heard me yell. Chris said he heard me yell. And the murderer heard me because his facial expression changed. And in that moment, he dropped his rifle in the church and came out of the church shooting at me with a pistol. And as I ran across, he started flinging rounds at me, and I ran for cover. I ran for a Dodge pickup, something about a 6.2-liter V8 Hemi, really comforting at the moment. And I ran behind the truck and came up over the hood of the truck, and I'm looking at him, and he's coming toward me, and he's got on Class 3 body armor and a ballistic bulletproof helmet. And he hit the truck in front of me, he shattered the windshield of the car behind me, he hit the house behind me. I put one in his left chest, I put one in his abdomen. And he stopped for a moment shooting at me and ran for his vehicle, which was sitting in the middle of the street with the driver's side door open, engine running. And when he turned to his side to get into his vehicle, he exposed his side. I put one between the plates, high in his side, and I put one high in his legs. He was still able to get in the vehicle. And, you know, I'm going to mention this for whatever it's worth, but Joe Biden said, we're going to teach law enforcement to shoot him in the legs. Well, Sleepy Joe, that doesn't really work. I hit him in the legs. He still got in the vehicle. He put 2 shots through the side window at me, and I couldn't see him from the glass, the reflection, but I put one where I perceived his head to be. It split underneath across his forehead, right underneath the rim of the helmet. He accelerated, he turned the corner, he wanted out. And he fled as fast as he could. He was about 150 yards away by the time I got in the middle of the street, and fleeing as fast as that Ford Escape could go. I put one through the back windshield. The police say that went through the back window, It went through the driver's side seat. It hit him right at the left shoulder blade. And he continued.
Stopped him.
No.
No?
He had on body armor. And that was stopped by the body. The one in the chest, the one in the abdomen, both of those should have stopped him, but he had on body armor. He topped the hill and out of sight, and I'm standing in the middle of the street thinking, it can't end this way. And I looked off to my left, and there was a truck stopped at the stop sign. I never met this guy before in my life. The young man had on the phone, Dodge pickup truck stopped at the stop sign. I ran over and I tapped on the window and said, that guy shot up the church and we have to stop him. Every sane person in this world would have just hit the gas and just left me there at the stop sign.
In your bare feet.
In my bare feet. But this is Texas we're talking about. We're not known for sanity. You know, a little sense of honor and duty.
Or cowardness. We're not known for cowardness either.
We are not known for backing down. Next thing I heard were the locks come open. I climbed up in the cab of a truck, long, tall Texan, white Western hat, feather sticking out of the hat. Honest, I couldn't make this up. He's got a longhorn skull tattooed in the middle of his neck, and the horns run up under his ears. And name's Johnny Langendorf. And Johnny was on the phone with dispatch at that point.
Okay.
And he accelerated. He took off after him, and as I'm running down the road, I dropped the magazine to the rifle because I knew I didn't have but a handful, and I was even unsure how many I fired. Police asked me later. I was like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Your guess
blur.
is as good as mine, you know. And I dropped the magazine, and there was one at the top of the magazine, meaning I had one in the magazine and one in the chamber. And I looked at Johnny, I said, tell them, hurry, hurry. I have 2 rounds left. And he still got on Class 3 body armor. You know, and that was a terrifying moment, you know. I only have 2 rounds, and we're still chasing this guy down the road. It's going to get serious real quick. And I never wanted to see red and blue lights more in my life. People, if you don't support the police department, you need to think real hard about yourself, because these law enforcement officers are coming hard and fast, and they're coming to put their lives on the line for you, and they don't even know who you are.
Rushing into danger.
And so we continued to chase him down the road. At first, we didn't even have him within our sights because he was already gone by the time I got in Johnny's truck. But as we made it down the road, I started thinking, because we came around a corner and over the top of a hill, and that's him. Gray Ford Escape, the back windows busted out. That's him. And I turned and I looked at Johnny, and again, I didn't even know his name. I said, you know, if you catch him, you're going to have to put him off the road. And Johnny the first words he said to me was, yep, I already figured that. I mean, he was probably thinking in his head, I always wanted to try a pit maneuver. But Johnny was in it to win it. You know, he was, and as we came up to the guy, he pulled off into the ditch with a road sign right in front of his vehicle. And I thought, oh, this is it. It gets serious now. And so I put down the window of the passenger side, stuck the rifle out, and Johnny pulled up on the pavement with his front bumper, even with the guy's back bumper, and stopped. And I reached over with my left hand and I opened the door. I was going to step out of the vehicle and use the door as a shield and re-engage him. And before my foot hit the ground, he accelerated. He took the sign out. I didn't know the signs came out like that, but he took the sign out. It flipped over the top of the vehicle. He got right back up on the road and started running again. I barely got my foot in before Johnny was after him. This time about 3/4 of a mile farther up the road. And he swerved off. He was going around a curve that the sign indicated. He swerved off to the left, ran through a fence and out about 50 yards into a field and stopped. And I looked at Johnny. I said, Johnny, just get down below the dash. You don't have a gun or anything. Just stay out of gunfire just get down below the dash. And I got out and I put my rifle across the hood of a truck. Again, second time I'm using a Dodge pickup truck for cover. And Johnny did what all millennials nowadays would do. He got out of the vehicle and started videoing. Serious, I didn't expect that, but he got out and he was videoing. And it took police between 5 and 7 minutes to get there. They were just so far away.
Right, and you were moving.
Not their fault, but they were 5 to 7 minutes behind me, and I will tell you that my community didn't have another 5 to 7 minutes inside a church building with a maniac with all the ammo that he needed to finish everybody off. And I had the rifle over the hood, and I was yelling rude obscenities, get out of the truck. And I hope God will forgive me for what language I was using, but I was really angry. And at one point I even remember saying, "Where are the police?" And then a few minutes later I heard loudspeaker, "Driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up." And I turned and looked off to my left, and I could see him out there. He was about 50 yards from me. He was standing behind his door, his police cruiser, with a pistol in his right hand and a mic in his left. And he keyed the mic again. He said, "Driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up." And let me tell you, if you're ever involved in something like this, that police officer may not know who you are.
Right.
And he wants to go home to his family that night.
So he's talking to you, or he's talking to the perp?
I didn't know.
Okay.
Didn't have any clue. I assumed he was talking to him, but I'm not taking chances. I laid the rifle on the hood of Johnny's truck, and I came to the back of the truck with my hands up, palms out, fingers splayed. I wanted him to know I was not a threat. And I came to toward the back of the truck, and that officer made eye contact with me. And he keyed the mic again, and he said, "Not you." He showed me more respect in that moment than I expected. But he understood that I had a rifle and I was at 50 yards, and he had his pistol. He was at 100. And he wasn't done with me yet. So I went over and I picked up the rifle and I trained it back on the vehicle. And the vehicle was sitting at such an angle that I couldn't see in it. But I had the red dot of my EOTech focused on that side window that was busted out. I just sat there and waited, and 5 or 6 more police officers came from both directions up the road and blocked the road off. And then I'm like, okay, I am done now. When they started getting out of their cars and they had AR-15s themselves, I'm done. I pulled the rifle off the hood of the truck and I went over and I laid it on the toolbox. And now I'm trying to get my feet into the shade of Johnny's truck. My feet are smoking at this point.
I bet.
Adrenaline's gone and my feet are hot. And I'm hanging onto the bed and trying to get my feet over there. And I waited another 30 to 45 minutes. I didn't know what was going on. I was an island to myself. And I didn't know what they were doing. Turned out one of the police officers had gotten a drone 2 weeks earlier for his birthday. They sent him home to get his drone so that he could fly the drone over, look inside the car, and see what was going on before they risk an officer's life. Mm-hmm. But I started to dart back to the line, and they said, no, stay there. We'll bring up a police cruiser. So they brought up a police cruiser to me, and I used it for cover to get back to the police line about 50 yards back. And then I sat down on a guardrail, and everything just started. Adrenaline was gone. I started shaking, and as one of the officers walked by, about that time I could see my wife's car drive up the road and stop at the blockade. And I asked the officer, I said, can I go back there to my wife's car? No, you need to stay here. I said, but my feet are hot. And he said, your feet are hot? I said, I don't have any shoes on. I asked to call my wife before I said that, and he said, sure, go ahead, and he kept walking. I said, can I use your phone? And I called my wife, and she said, you can have my shoes, which weren't going to fit, but it would get my feet off the pavement. And that's when I asked the officer, can I go back there and get my wife's shoes? And he said, no, you need to stay here. I said, my feet are hot. And he reached over and he opened up the rear door of his police cruiser and said, you can sit in the back of my cruiser. I'm like, no, I'm cool. I'm cool. Those doors don't open from the inside. And I thought that I was going to go to jail anyway.
Yeah.
And I thought it would work its way out, but I didn't want to get in that car any sooner than I had to. And it turned out I was never arrested. They waited until the Texas Rangers got there and took over the crime scene and stuff. And then they allowed me to go home. And as I was walking 200 yards back to my wife's car, a lady came up behind me and said, Mr. Williford, I need to speak with you. And I turned around and looked, a very pleasant-looking lady, and she said, I knew people in that church, and she had been crying. And I said, how bad is it? She said, it's really bad. But if there's anything I can do for you, here's my card. And she says, I'm the DA of Wilson County. Man, that card came out of her fingers so fast, I bet it burned. But my community took up for me, and the sheriff of Wilson County at the time, he knew my mother when he was a little bitty boy. So he knew my family, and I was never charged with anything.
But that wasn't certain going into it. You ran into that because it's a coin toss.
You know, thank God I'm here in Texas.
Right.
We're a little bit different in Texas. If this would have been California, or if it would have been New York or someplace like that, I would have definitely gone to jail. I believe that, sober minds would have justified it and let me go. But in Texas, I was never charged with anything criminal at all.
That's incredible.
In fact, they took my rifle at the scene. Thank God I'm here in Texas.
Right.
We're a little bit different in Texas. If this would have been California, or if it would have been New York or someplace like that, I would have definitely gone to jail. I believe that, sober minds would have justified it and let me go. But in Texas, I was never...
That's amazing. Can I take you back to the church real quick? How many people were in the church that morning?
49 people in total were in that church building. 26 died, and 20 others were wounded.
Wow.
And after the shooter had left, I told you about Julie Worthing.
Yeah.
Also, Gunny Macias. Gunny Macias is a retired Marine. I said, oh, Gunny, you were a Marine. He said, no, once a Marine, always a Marine. So he was a retired Marine. He got shot 5 times in the abdomen. And the moment the shooter left the building, he yelled out in a big booming voice, hallelujah, hallelujah. Even in this, praise God. And then Julie stood up and saw a little girl that was shot in the head and dead, that had been moments before swinging around her legs, singing praises to God. Julie screamed, and Gunny Macias yelled out, woman, you were made for this moment. Nothing took God by surprise. We need you. Julie's an emergency room nurse. And Julie, bleeding from her own wounds, got up and started tying tourniquets and saving lives within the church. And then a little girl said, Gunny, I'm scared. And Gunny Macias started singing Jesus Loved Me with that little girl.
Wow.
There were people in that church that did very heroic things. Gunny couldn't even stand up. But through his commanding voice, telling people what they needed to do, he was saving lives.
Yeah.
Zach Poston, 17-year-old young man was a senior in high school. He was ready to walk across the stage with his class and graduate. He was signed up to be a Marine himself. He was 17 years old. He got shot 7 times, but before the shooter turned and started shooting him, he kicked a little girl. The same little girl said, "Daddy, I'm scared." He kicked her under the pews so the shooter wouldn't see her. And that made him murderer focus on Zach. Zach got shot 7 times. And then his grandmother crawled on top of him and sacrificed her life and died on top of Zach's. And he walked across the stage even after being shot 7 times and graduated with his class.
Powering. And you woke up that morning, you're getting some extra sleep for a shift, you had no idea, but you had firearms training, and you're able to fall back on your training, in those moments, your training kicks in. We're going through the district trying to
I am really sorry.
That's
No, we were going to pause it because of their
cameras are
overheating.
Oh,
So we were
okay.
going to cut the point.
Yeah.
You want to do a sign off?
Yeah, we'll do a sign. Okay.
Okay.
This kind of what I'm leading up to.
Okay. Because we're not even going to, after this one overheats, that's it.
Okay, all right.
So you got to get going.
All right, cool.
Sorry.
But I'm just struck by your story and the personal nature of it, and there's nothing that can prepare you for that when it's close to home. I mean, even if you've been to war and in combat, this is next door in a church and full of people but you still have to act. So we are going through the district trying to do family 2A range days to get people familiar with weapons if God forbid they ever need them, and to make
Do
them
something
safe.
for me.
Okay.
Stop calling them weapons. That's a military term.
It is. It's a habit. It's an old habit.
It is a military. It's a habit, and for law enforcement, guns are weapons. For the most of us, I have on my safe. It's time for us to take the narrative back. I have a sticker on my safe that says "Caution: Fragile Precision Paper Punching Equipment." Your car can be a weapon.
Yeah.
Your cell phone can be a weapon.
Yep.
Whatever's in your hand can be a weapon.
That's
a
100%.
gun is a firearm and stuff, and people need to understand. And when we call them weapons, we let the left narrative soak in.
Yeah, no, I love that, and that's a great course correction for me. I appreciate that. So we're gonna have family 2A range days to learn how to use guns in safe ways, and God forbid if they ever have to use them in ways that, to defend our family. And certainly, the Second Amendment is there to defend all of us from tyranny.
And they can be a weapon.
They can.
Please go to gunowners.org and sign up. I now work for Gun Owners of America, and I fight the fight nationwide.
I love it. I love it. We have to have it, and we got to bring the next generation into this. So, and that's why this campaign is promoting what Gun Owners of America is doing throughout the district. It is so important to our Bill of Rights and to all of our rights and all of our feeling of safety for our family and ensuring their future. So, I'm Commander Jay Furman, and I am the Republican nominee for District 28, South Texas, and that's going to be in November, guys. So the most important right to ensure all of our Bill of Rights are to register to vote and to vote, and get everybody you know to do that. All the people, 70% of the public that do not, are ceding that to special interests, and they don't always have, and in fact, very often don't have our interest in mind. The Second Amendment is one of those. So protect your rights at the range, protect your rights at the ballot box. That's Jay Furman. Thanks again. And I'm at CommnanderFurman.com. You want to put your handles out there again?
I just wanted to say that Gun Owners of America has now officially endorsed Jay for his race, and I personally want to endorse you too.
Thank you, Stephen.
So you got the Barefoot Defenders endorsement.
That's tremendous. That's us.
And you got GOA's endorsement, and we really want people to get out and vote for you.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate you. Many blessings to you and your family.